Hello, Monday, to all our 50 plus and fabulous women out there. How's everyone doing? We're so excited to be live again today on our Money Mondays with Purse Strings. Today we have Vivian with us, and we're so happy you're here. So thank you for coming on, Vivian.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here today. It's
Should be
sunshiny out. What's not to like?
exactly, you got to make the best out of a Monday. Um, So yeah, we're glad everyone's joining us. Just to get a little intro before we get started here, Purse Strings is here every week to provide or give some free financial education. No sales, just information. But then if you are looking for a professional for that next transaction or transition, we have a whole list of vetted professionals who love to work with the female market, will really attend to your needs, really be in your court, which is awesome. So check them out, pursestrings.co. We're always here for you. And if you ever have a topic you're looking for, specific question, just reach out. We got it all covered. But today we are here with Vivian, and we are going to talk about, having loved ones with special needs. And it doesn't matter, if you're the mom, the sister, the grandma, it's still really connects to you either way. And this is really a specialty you have as well. So before we dive into all that, would you just give a little overview of who you are and what you do?
Okay, thank you. My name is Vivian Villers. I'm the CEO and president of Sage Planning. I'm an independent financial planner. I've been in practice for over 30 years. And I have clients from all walks of life all over the country. Retirees that are in their 80s and 90s, people getting ready to retire, women in business, and especially parents of children with disabilities. And I myself have two family members with disabilities, although I don't have any children myself. So, and I believe in what I refer to as concierge financial planning that's individualized for each person that walks in the door. It's not cookie cutter.
Definitely. Yeah, we were just having a conversation last week with a different professional. None of us are cookie cutter. So some of this information, is kind of to cover it, but always get your own professional because none of us are the same. We all have our own unique situation. So to dive in, Vivian, we are talking, and you have always worked with special needs families. That's always kind of been your focus, but that really was driven home one day, and really has pushed your focus more into special needs families. Can you kind of tell us your story of why this is so important to you?
Yes. I started working with families with disabilities, with children with disabilities, in the early 90s because I had someone come to a seminar. And so I was kind of, like, I'm here if you need help, and I have all these other collateral professionals that I can refer to. And several years ago, about 8 years ago, I was actually driving back home from Michigan, and I got a call from my brother. My sister-in-law had been killed on the way home from the bank. And my nephew, Stephen, is adult and has severe autism and is nonverbal. And there was, even though I talked to my sister-in-law for years, and this is very, very typical of parents of children with disabilities, she kept pushing it off and pushing it off. There was nothing to tell the first responders what to do or who to call. They literally were knocking on the doors of neighbors in this semi-rural area near Rockford, Illinois, where they lived. My brother was out of town in Kentucky and wasn't there. And Stephen, my nephew, was in a daycare program. And at the moment his mother was killed, he was on a bus on the way home to be imminently arriving to a darkened, empty house. And that's when I realized. And what happened was there was horrendous chaos that Stephen went through as a person with autism. If you know anything about it, when you disrupt their environment or their schedule, they have an autistic meltdown. This is not like a temper tantrum. This is completely different because people with autism are not able to create a plan B if you throw them a curveball. So here's Stephen for a whole week going through one autistic meltdown after another. And I saw the chaos, and I lived through the chaos that my family had to endure because of no planning. And honestly, Maggie, that's the day I made it my mission to do what I can to get families with a child with a disability to take action. I keep saying to them, your next crisis is not on your calendar.
Yeah.
Whether you're 35 or 55 or 75, you just can't keep pushing the planning issues down the road. And also, this made me realize the need for a crisis plan.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And it's interesting because a crisis plan isn't always something that you would always think about making with a financial professional. I don't know who you think about making it with, but it's not always a financial professional. And so it's interesting kind of how this got you started, because everyone needs a financial plan, and you're so intimate in these people's lives. You got to help them with these different resources along the way.
Yes, yes. And the planning issues for parents are really kind of critical because they're trying to plan for their own retirement security. At the
Yeah.
same time, they're planning, or they should be planning, for their child's future care and support. And then when this happened to my sister-in-law, I went, wait a minute. We need, information that can be provided to first responders to even tell them there's a child with a disability and what to do. So, it became twofold. And the statistics are over 80% of parents with a child with a disability have done virtually nothing to prepare for the future care and support of that child. Or they do it
Wow.
kind of haphazardly, like, oh, I'll leave money to his sister, and his sister Susie can take care of him, and they don't realize all the complications of doing that. So
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of complications with, governmental benefits and what money you have now and in a trust and what qualifies. I know there are some big issues about, people giving their inheritance to a loved one, because they do have, more financial needs than others. And you leave it the wrong way, and you lose your benefits, and it really does you more harm than good. It's a lot, and it can get messy, which is really hard. And that's why there's people like you who understand it.
exactly. And I have a whole network. I'm very blessed that over 25 years ago, I met a woman who is what I call the guru of benefits. I mean, she is the person that I send people to, and she sends clients to me, that knows all about how to qualify for government benefits. Because the reality is, when your child is 18, no matter what their physical, mental capability is, the government considers them an adult, and they are eligible for SSI, which is a form of disability for people who haven't worked, and Medicaid, without, including the parents' income and assets. And you really need to go ahead and apply for it, because you never know what's going to happen down the road, and if you can get some help from the government, and then your resources or that of your family, grandparents and Aunt Sally, can supplement it, that's a big plus. But you're right. They put things off. There are different kinds of trusts. One is a special needs trust,
Mm-hmm.
which is referred to as a third party trust. And I say that's someone else's money. Great Aunt Sally, grandma and grandpa, and the parents when they're gone, or even
Mm-hmm.
if they put money there now. Then there's what is referred to as an Ober 93 trust, which came about during the Ober Omnibus and Reconciliation Act of 1993. And my friend Sherry and I refer to it as the Oops Trust. We put money in our child's name, or grandma left money to him, and oops, he can't have it because he's going to get kicked off the benefit rolls. You can legally transfer the money in there and then continue to qualify for SSI and Medicaid. It's a tighter, more restrictive kind of a trust. And then there's a new thing called ABLE, which came about a few years ago, that you could actually have in your child's social security number, and it can be up to $100,000 of a balance or an asset amount, and still not get kicked off benefit rolls. So if you don't know what you're doing, or more so, if you have a financial advisor that doesn't understand all the ins and outs of having investments inside of a trust, it can come back to bite you. So, and I built a whole network of guardianship attorneys and special needs attorneys who specialize in working with these kinds of families. There's a whole alliance all around the United
Mm-hmm.
States of special needs attorneys. So once I had that whole group of other professionals that I could call up and talk to, I felt, okay, I can do more for families like this.
That's awesome. It's great work and it's so needed because everyone does need a financial plan. I mean, finances are a huge deal. There's no way around it. Like it is what it is. Um, and so I was taking a look at your checklist, and some of the things are, your loved ones' names that should be a good contact and things like that. Where do you recommend people keep a list like this if first responders were to come or something were to happen?
Right. Thank you. So, out of this crisis where my sister-in-law was killed, I developed something I call the Special Needs Crisis Checklist. And it's one page, PDF, fillable. And it tells first responders that you have a child with a disability and all the other information about who to contact that can help and all that kind of thing. And I recommend that you keep it. If you want to keep it in your wallet or on your phone, that's fine, but your phone could get destroyed or lost in an accident. So keep another copy in your glove compartment, keep a copy at home, tell your family members where it's kept at home, potentially along with other important documents. What would have happened, for example, when my sister-in-law was in this tragic car accident, if she had lived and been in the hospital? You need to know where the other important documents are kept, powers of attorney and who to call. Or, I often thought, what happened if Stephen had been in the car with her and had survived? How would first responders know that he's not deaf, he's autistic, and he's nonverbal? And how would they know that he's not in shock or something like that? So keep it in the glove compartment of the car, keep it in your purse or wallet, keep it in your phone, but don't just put it there, and have another copy at home where your family members know where to get a hold of it.
Yeah, that's great. And even if the child knew where it was, they could just know to hand it over or kind of give a clue that's where it is versus trying to relay all that information as well.
But think about a child. I have clients whose son is severely physically damaged. They don't know what the cause was. No doctor can figure it out, but he's completely dependent on oxygen and to be fed and bathed and dressed. What if he's at home with a caregiver and mom gets injured? The first responders have to know this kind of information. Or if
Right.
you've got somebody, you're in the van and you've got somebody who's got cerebral palsy in the back seat,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not just the crisis planning, although that's what motivated me. It's really trying to get parents and families to not delay any longer and start
Yeah.
to take action. And I try to tell them that there are a couple of things you can do right away, even before you start to create a long-term plan. One of the things I talk about is the beneficiary designations, which I think are critical for everyone, but more so for families with a child with a disability. Quite often when people get married and they have their first child, the insurance agent comes and they say, okay, you're going to leave your life insurance proceeds or your IRA proceeds to your spouse, right? Yes. Okay. And then for the secondary or contingent beneficiary, a lot of times they'll make a blanket benefit. They'll leave it blank. Oh, I don't have all the kids' names and birthdays and social security numbers. I'll get back to you. And it never gets done. So it's blank. Or they make a blanket designation like all my living children, because you're going to have more children. And now you have a child that's born with a disability and you never go back and change the designation. And when a child, I always refer to them as a child because they're the child of a parent, even though they could be 40 or 50, like my nephew.
We're always children.
Yes, exactly. But think about this. Years down the road, dad dies. They don't change the beneficiary designations. Mom dies, okay, or whatever. Now your child with a disability inherits money. You cannot disclaim it and stay on government benefits.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say, no, 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 I don't want it.
The only time you'd say no, thank you.
Yeah, or grandma has a will that says, I want to leave $10,000 to each of my grandchildren and names them.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we think sometimes, this conversation is so important for all members because as much as you want to do something so nice, you don't want to actually end up messing it up or have that money really hurt them in the long run. And that's why these conversations are so important, just to know, because I also think that's one of the things you don't know. You don't know that you don't know. I had no idea that, you couldn't just leave the money to that person and their benefits would be affected. I was just trying to do a nice, kind thing if anything were to happen.
Well, that's where the Ober 93 Oops Trust comes in. It allows you to legally transfer money. My friend Sherry, who does the benefits, told me she had a client who pulled the lever in Las Vegas and hit the jackpot and won a couple $100,000, and he has a disability. He's on government benefits, and now he suddenly owns $200,000. So here's the call. Can you help me out? And yes, legally you can. You can transfer that money into an Ober trust. But a lot of people, Maggie, will do something like, oh, well, I don't need a whole fancy bunch of legal documents. And I know that I'm a financial planner and I'm not an attorney, but I get involved in these issues. I'll just leave some to his sister. Well, then she gets into a bankruptcy or an ugly marriage, and the money's in her name, in her social security number. So the planning issues for me are the critical pieces. And what happens is when I work with parents, first of all, when I work with family members, I want them to have a meeting with all the family members and say, we've set up this plan. So if you're going to leave any money to my son, Stephen, which is my nephew's name, please don't leave it to him directly, but we have this trust and you can name the trust.
Right.
And then the other thing you want to do is, I believe that parents should adequately provide for their own retirement. And the most cost-effective way to fund a special needs trust for the future support of your child after you're gone is with life insurance. It's pennies on the dollar. And that allows the parents then to divert as much of the assets of their income and savings as they need towards their own retirement.
Definitely. And because it's a lot of money, a lot of money, you'll need closer now and later now, and so it's a lot of planning. And so, yeah, life insurance is always a great option for that as well.
But please don't buy term insurance for a permanent solution. I saw somebody recommend that and I went, no, because the last thing you want to be is 80 years old and you bought term insurance for to support your child's future. Maybe your child has Down syndrome or autism and is still alive, and now you're retired and you can't even afford the premium. The best way to do this is with some form of cash value life insurance, and there's lots of different options and versions out there, but then you have a more predictable premium to pay for when you're checking on your cash flow needs for retirement.
And yeah, that leads us to a whole nother conversation of perm and term and all that good stuff as well. And so, as we can see, like we kind of started with, no one's cookie cutter, and everyone should kind of come and make this plan for their loved ones, get their loved ones on board, just to have that open communication, because it's so important. And we're always just trying to better each other. And so we all just kind of do need to be part of this conversation.
Yeah, the typical insurance is something called a second to die, where you buy one insurance policy that covers, say, both parents, assuming you have two parents in the home, because it only pays when the second person dies. And it allows for one of the two people to be literally uninsurable. But let me share a quick story with you. I had a client. He has a chronic illness that makes him uninsurable. So we looked at the premium for the second to die policy, and then we looked at a premium for the exact same dollar amount on the mother alone, assuming that because she's healthier, she's more likely to die first. The premium to put a policy on her alone was less expensive than the second to die. So what we did was we made the father the primary beneficiary, thinking, okay, what if, God forbid, happens and she gets killed prematurely in an accident or an illness or something? Then the father is the primary, and he could say, no, I don't need it, and disclaim it, and then it goes to the special needs trust, or he could take part of it and then leave whatever is left at his death to the special needs trust. As I said, it's not cookie cutter. You have to know everybody's individual situation.
Definitely, definitely. And that's why, yeah, I got to talk to a professional. So I feel like we've gone over a ton of great information. And I know we wanted to share this planning checklist. So we'll put the link to it in the comments. That way people can go in and download it whenever they watch the video. Yeah, and I'm looking at it now. It's really great. Just all the different types of communication you could say that's on there, the best way your child communicates or what needs they might have. Because it's important. It's important stuff. So Vivian, what's the best way for people to reach out to you, ask questions, do some work with you, or see if it's a good fit?
I'm more than happy to have a conversation with anyone. As I said earlier to you, I have clients all over the country, from Washington State down to Florida, 2 time zones in Texas and California and the Midwest. So my email is on the video here on the chat. It's vjvillers@sigmarep.com. So please feel free to email me and tell me you have a question, and I'm more than happy to see if I can help someone with a brief conversation. And then if it's a good fit, we can talk about going forward and forming a long-term relationship. I'm actually giving several presentations at some adult ed programs. If you'd like me to speak to your organization, if you're a parent or a grandparent that's affiliated with an organization that deals with families with special needs children, I'm always happy to come and speak and share my information and my advice, whether it's virtual like this or it's in person. I'm actually speaking to a group of people in Salt Lake City
Oh,
in
wow.
May, I think it is, virtually.
Oh, perfect. There you go.
So that, just contact me at vjvillers@sigmarep.com, and I'll be happy to see what I can do to help you and perhaps, make a long-term relationship, helping you plan for retirement and for your child's future.
Awesome. Thank you. Vivian is also one of our Purse Strings approved professionals, so you could check her out on our site, pursestrings.co. We are so happy for everyone who joined us today, and we'll see everyone next Monday for another Money Monday. So thank you, and talk to everyone soon. Bye.
Special needs and retirement. Thank you. Thanks, Maggie.